The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello, and welcome to Wonderfully Made. My name is Don Morgan, and I teach in the Department of Health and Human Performance at Middle Tennessee State University. This is the fifth in a series of programs focusing on the health benefits which come from following a physically active lifestyle. As an exercise physiologist for over 20 years, I have seen firsthand the positive changes that occur when individuals begin to incorporate physical activity into their lives. Today, we're going to be looking at how physical activity can help in the battle against obesity, one of the major causes of death and disease in the United States today. About a year ago, Time magazine put out a special issue called Overcoming Obesity in America. In the cover story, which was entitled, How We Grew So Big, a majority of Americans who were polled indicated that they would like to lose weight. And 86% said that not getting enough physical exercise was one of the most important causes of obesity in the U.S. However, only about a fourth of the respondents stated that they exercised at least 3 times a week. 87% of the sample also noted that the predominant reasons for the nation's obesity problem were poor dietary choices and a lack of exercise. Given this scenario, it would appear that one of the challenges in helping people lose weight is to motivate and encourage them to become more physically active on a regular basis. Later in the program, I want to spend some time addressing this specific issue. But I'd like to begin today by laying out some of the statistics related to obesity in our country, and then follow up by examining the role that physical activity can play in fighting this chronic health condition. Obesity has increased very much in our country over the past 20 years. And the United States currently has the highest prevalence of obesity in the entire world. Overweightness and obesity affect about 100 million American adults aged 24 to 74, with the highest rate seen among the poor and in minority groups. Based on some of the latest data available from the Centers for Disease Control, nearly 2/3 of Americans are officially overweight. And of those who are overweight, close to 50% are obese, and about 5% are morbidly obese. That's a condition that requires significant medical attention. While the incidence of obesity in the U.S. is significant, what is particularly alarming is the rapid rate at which obesity levels have increased over the past 10 to 15 years. According to the Centers for Disease Control, obesity has increased 50% or more over the past decade in each of the 50 states. In view of these findings, it is not surprising why some have described the growing rate of obesity in our country as nothing short of epidemic. From a mortality standpoint, it has been reported that approximately 280,000 adult deaths in the United States each year are attributable to obesity. In terms of financial cost, the annual monetary drain to the U.S. economy that is associated with being overweight and obese is $117 billion, and over 39 million workdays are lost annually to obesity-related causes. In our next program, I'm going to focus on the role that physical activity can play in reducing childhood obesity. But just in case you missed that program, I want to highlight the results of one study that was published in the journal Preventive Medicine. In this study, it was reported that the chance of an obese child becoming an obese adult increases with age. Specifically, about 1/3 of obese preschool children became obese adults. And 50% of obese school-age children ended up obese as adults. What was even more disconcerting was that 80% of obese adolescents carried their obesity with them into their adult years. Now, what is the take-home message from these data? In my view, these results suggest that early on in a child's life, aggressive measures should be implemented and instituted to promote physical activity as a means of managing excessive weight gain. As I mentioned earlier, we'll talk more in our next program about how vital physical activity can be in decreasing the incidence of childhood obesity. What are some of the health problems and risks associated with obesity? The risk of developing high blood pressure or hypertension rises sharply with an increase in body weight. Conversely, weight reduction is the single most effective non-drug method of controlling high blood pressure. And increasing physical activity is certainly one way to promote weight loss. Another health risk of obesity is an increase in cholesterol and other blood fats, which can contribute to heart disease. In this regard, even losing a few pounds can have significant beneficial effects on reducing blood lipid levels. Obesity can bring a greater risk of osteoarthritis, especially in the knees and hips, which then will cause pain and limitations in range of motion. Along with heart disease and high blood pressure, obesity is linked to an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Those that are most vulnerable to this triad of health conditions tend to have more of their fat deposited in the abdominal areas rather than in the hip and thigh regions. Obese individuals can experience greater psychological burdens, with many having unflattering self-images of themselves, which can then lead to feelings of guilt, depression, and low self-esteem. This can be a particularly tough burden for children, who can be on the receiving end of teasing or jokes from classmates and acquaintances. Recent data also suggest that middle-age obesity may raise the risk of developing dementia later in life. Given the fact that being overweight and obese is associated with a number of adverse health conditions, a reasonable question to ask is, how does one quantify overweightness and obesity? While there are many laboratory-based methods of assessing body composition, a simple and inexpensive method is to determine body mass index, or BMI. The BMI, which indicates how heavy you are relative to your weight, has been shown to be more accurate than using weight alone to estimate obesity, and it also correlates reasonably well to direct measurements of body fat. The following graphic demonstrates how to calculate BMI. In this example, we have a 50-year-old man who is 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighs 154 pounds. The first thing we need to do is convert his height to inches. So to do that, we multiply 5 feet by 12, since there are 12 inches in a foot, and add 8 more inches to arrive at 68 inches. In step 2, we multiply 68 by 68 to get 4,624, which is his height squared. Then, in step 3, we divide his weight, which is 154 pounds, by his height squared, which is 4,624, to yield a very small number. In this case, the number is 0.0333044. In our last step, we multiply this very small number by 704.5, which is just a given constant, to obtain the BMI, which in this example is 23.4 kg per m squared, or kilograms per meter squared. Now I know that that was a lot to digest, so if you want an easier route to follow, and you have internet access, you can navigate to the website shown on the next graphic. That graphic shows that the site is www.cdc.gov/growth charts. Once you're at that site, click on Tools to Calculate BMI, and then click on BMI Web Calculator, and you'll be able to derive your BMI value. Now that you've determined your BMI value, you're probably interested in knowing where you fit relative to existing BMI standards. As shown in the next graphic, if your BMI value is less than 18.5 kilograms per meter squared, you are considered underweight for your height. A normal BMI range for adults is between 18.5 to 24.9 kilograms per meter squared. A BMI corresponding to being overweight ranges from 25 to 29.9 kilograms per meter squared, and obesity class 1 ranges from 30 to 34.9 kilograms per meter squared. And, as you can see, class 2 and class 3 obesity levels begin at 35 and 40 kilograms per meter squared, respectively. Before we leave this topic, it is important to note that there are limitations to using the BMI. For instance, people who are very muscular, like a 6-foot 2-inch, 230-pound football linebacker, would display a relatively high BMI value, but would likely have relatively low levels of body fat. In this case, BMI would overestimate body fat percentage. Conversely, elderly persons may display a lower than usual BMI, which would reflect a loss in muscle mass, but could have elevated levels of body fat. And, as you might imagine, very short adults are sometimes penalized when using BMI, since their height squared value would still be lower relative to the average person's. Notwithstanding these potential drawbacks, the BMI has been widely used in large population studies because it is easier to obtain and because higher values have been tied to a greater risk for cardiovascular disease. The ability to predict disease risk can be strengthened by combining measures of BMI and waist circumference. If your BMI is between 25 and 29.9, which would put you in the overweight category, and your waist circumference is greater than 40 inches for men or greater than 35 inches for women, your risk for type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease is high compared to having a normal BMI value and a lower waist circumference. Likewise, if your BMI is between 30 and 34.9, which would put you in obesity class 1, your disease risk would be very high relative to individuals with a normal BMI and a smaller waist girth. The fact that waist circumference can be used to predict disease risk suggests that the location of body fat is an important health concern. Upper body obesity, characterized by a predominance of fat in the trunk and abdominal regions, is associated with higher levels of heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cholesterol. This relationship has been found in studies which demonstrate that the risk from cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancer rises as the ratio between waist and hip circumference increases. From a physiological perspective, the association between higher abdominal fat and increased disease risk is linked to the observation that fat cells in the abdominal area tend to be more active in releasing fat compared to the buttock and thigh regions. What is known regarding the influence of heredity on body fat? While studies have shown that genetic factors account for about 25% to 40% of the variability in human obesity, much of the increase in obesity in the past 20 years has been associated with changes in lifestyle. Some of these factors include less physical activity, more time spent in sedentary pursuits like watching TV, surfing the internet, and playing video games, less walking in neighborhoods, a lack of active time at schools and the workplace, eating larger portion sizes, and consuming refined carbohydrates. How important, then, are lifestyle choices in counteracting a genetic inclination towards weight gain and obesity? To answer this question, researchers have looked at the Pima Indians, a group who has lived for at least 2,000 years near the Gila River in the Sonora Desert of Arizona. Up until about 100 years ago, the Pima Indians were farmers who apparently were lean and healthy and ate a diet high in complex carbohydrates and low in fat. However, once they moved on to reservations, they stopped farming and began consuming a high-fat diet. With these changes in lifestyle, the rate of obesity in this population has climbed to approximately 70%, and diabetes has become quite prevalent. Interestingly, there is another group of Pima Indians living in northern Mexico who have continued to labor as farmers and to eat a diet high in carbohydrates and low in fat. Guess what you find when you compare the BMI values of the northern Mexico Pima Indians with those of the Arizona Pima Indians? That's right. The northern Mexican Pima Indians display much lower BMI values compared to their Arizona counterparts. Viewed collectively, these findings suggest that environment can either promote or diminish the expression of one's genetic predisposition towards weight gain and obesity. What is the impact of physical activity or weight gain? It has been shown that the incidence of obesity is highest in men and women who are not physically active on a regular basis. In contrast, individuals who reported participation in non-intense physical activity were much less likely to be overweight. In one study that followed over 79,000 people for 10 years, it was found that those who walked for more than 4 hours per week fended off weight gain much more effectively than did sedentary subjects. In a similar fashion, another study of more than 9,000 women and men who were tracked for longer than a decade revealed that substantial weight gain was much more likely among people who engaged in low versus high amounts of physical activity. In fact, over a 2-year period, the risk of becoming overweight was shown to be reduced by accumulating just 30 minutes a day of moderate physical activity. Overall, there seems to be a strong evidence that suggests that regular physical activity is associated with a lower risk of long-term weight gain. Indeed, regular physical activity and exercise are some of the best predictors of weight loss maintenance and should be an important part of any weight management program. While many people begin an exercise program to lose substantial amounts of weight, it is important to recognize that physical activity can also help to prevent what is known as creeping obesity, or the slow, gradual increase in weight that many adults experience between the ages of 25 and 65. As your fitness level increases, you'll be able to rely more and more on physical activity and exercise to produce the caloric deficit necessary to lose weight. Once excess weight has been lost, it is vital that you continue being physically active as part of your daily routine so that you can maintain your new body weight. In this regard, engaging in regular physical activity is a good predictor of being able to sustain weight loss over the long term. The validity of this statement is supported by data obtained from a registry of people who have been successful in losing more than 30 pounds and maintaining this weight loss for more than 1 year. While 98% of these successful weight losers decreased their caloric intake, 94% increased their physical activity level, and 92% reported that they were continuing to remain active to keep their weight steady. Interestingly, those people who were most successful in preventing weight gain from reoccurring were now exercising for at least 1 hour a day. What are some of the benefits of regular physical activity and aerobic exercise for people who are overweight or obese? First, cardiorespiratory endurance improves, meaning that there is less strain on your heart and lungs. Second, weight loss leads to a healthier cholesterol and triglyceride profile. Third, regular exercise results in an increase in positive self-concept and mood state and decreases anxiety and depression. These psychological benefits can be of special importance to those who are overweight, given societal pressures to be thin. Fourth, as pointed out earlier, moderate physical activity can decrease the risk of a variety of obesity-related health problems like heart disease, hypertension, and cancer. With respect to diabetes, the negative caloric balance that results from physical activity and exercise is known to cause a rapid reversal of insulin resistance, even before changes in body composition can be measured. Performing exercise or physical activity with others can also serve to enhance the long-term maintenance of weight loss. The next topic that I want to talk about is setting up a physical activity program for overweight and obese individuals. As with anybody starting a regular program of physical activity, the emphasis should be placed on accumulating a minimum of 30 minutes of moderate physical activity nearly every day. Start by taking advantages of opportunities to incorporate physical activity into your daily schedule. As you continue with your physical activity program, you'll begin to lose weight and improve your strength and fitness. As this occurs, you'll also be able to gradually increase the length and intensity of your activity to secure even more benefits. In this regard, walking is a good physical activity choice for those who are overweight. If you wish to begin a formal walking program and you've been inactive for a while, one approach would be to walk for 10 minutes 3 days per week and slowly increase the duration of activity. At some point, you'll be able to walk for 30 to 45 minutes at least 3 days per week, and you will be well on your way to eventually being active on a daily basis. Individuals with BMI values of 35 or higher might want to consider performing low to moderate intensity, non-weight-bearing activities like cycling and swimming or other water exercise until progress has been made in losing weight and your functional capacity has been improved. Because those who are obese are at higher risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and hypertension, experts advise that these individuals should consult with a physician before beginning a program of physical activity. In the realm of exercise precautions, potential concerns for obese individuals include heat intolerance, movement restrictions, musculoskeletal pain and injury, muscle weakness, and balance anxiety. Given these issues, avoid exercise when heat stress is high, wear comfortable, loose-fitting clothing that breathes, start slowly and progress gradually, and purchase a good pair of walking or workout shoes. In a recent study of obese women who had lost weight over a 4-month period, the 33% most active participants continued losing weight, the middle 33% maintained their weight loss, and the 33% least active subjects gained weight steadily throughout the year. These data highlight the importance of regular physical activity in producing long-term success in weight reduction. Knowledge of the health benefits that come from engaging in daily physical activity and exercise, however, must be coupled with the motivation and desire to start and maintain a regular program of physical activity. I believe what is most important for each person is that you have to find a personally meaningful reason to adopt and maintain a physically active lifestyle. As I've mentioned in previous programs, for some, it may be that as you watch this series of programs, you'll come to realize the sheer magnitude of health blessings that result from being active on a daily basis. Or maybe you're not functioning as well as you used to, and you want to be able to perform everyday living tasks in a more effective manner. A recent health crisis or scare may have gotten your attention, and you have begun to search for a natural way to become healthier and more fit. Maybe you're not happy with the way you look and feel, and you're finally ready to do something about it. Or perhaps it's finally dawned on you that not only is your health important to yourself, but it's also important to those who love you and depend on you. Personally speaking, there are a number of reasons why I like to be physically active. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and you know from the earlier programs that I'm a runner. I'm not a very fast runner, but I enjoy running up and down the roads in Middle Tennessee, getting out into the sunshine and enjoying God's creation. But I can tell you that one of the most important reasons that motivates me to be physically active, that gets me out the door each day, is that my father died prematurely of a heart attack at the age of 55. He was very young. He had so much more to live for. And so I think about that each day as I get ready to run and realize that that's something that drives me to be active. And I'm pretty close to that age, not quite there yet, but I'm moving closer and closer each year. So my plan is to get to 55, look at 55, and to keep moving forward because I've got a tremendous amount to live for. So I hope today that the things that I've mentioned perhaps have touched a chord in your life and will act as a catalyst to motivate you to adopt a more physically active lifestyle. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20, Paul says the following words: "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God? You are not your own. You are bought with a price. So glorify God in your body." What these verses say to me is that we must treat our bodies with care because we are God's creation, His special creation. We mean everything to Him. And because of that, it is God's desire that our bodies remain strong and fit so that His Spirit can live in us and guide our decisions. God has given each of us the power of free choice. We can decide to make changes in our lives for the better if we want to. I pray that the message that you've heard today will help you to take that first step towards achieving higher levels of wellness and health. Remember that ordinary life is full of fitness and activity opportunities. All we have to do is to take hold of them. In our next program, we'll be talking about the impact of physical activity in childhood obesity. Until then, keep moving, step by step, towards better health and fitness.